Got a minute or two? We have a way to make it not okay. Welcome to Sinister Minutes. I'm your host, writer and storyteller, Kurt Homer. Next to me is the master of macabre musical musings, the maestro of mood, Tim Parker. Together, let us take you on a journey into the dark heart of disturbing. Sinister Minutes. It's not okay.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sinister Minutes podcast. Thank you so much, as always, for giving us a listen, and also for telling your friends and family to check us out. Them and that strange guy you see on the way to work, the one who never says anything but just glares at you with his one good eye. We're continuing to get new episodes out every other Friday. We do it all for you. Yes, you, our lovely listeners, the ones who bring out both our creativity and our most twisted ideas. If you want to let us know how we're doing, you can find us on Facebook under Sinister Minutes, or just reach out to us via sinisterminutes@gmail.com. Today's episode of Sinister Minutes includes 3 tales honoring Mother's Day in very different ways, all written and narrated by Kurt Homan, that's me, and then musically enabled, enhanced, and produced by Tim Parker, that's him. In the first tale, aptly called Mother's Day, a young woman greets her mother after a lengthy time apart. In the second, Mama's Boy, a youngster fights back against bullying by relying on his mother's wisdom, and then some. Finally, in The Visit, Mom and Dad come to grips with why their kids aren't around more often. We hope you had a spectacular Mother's Day and that you continue to enjoy the season of motherhood. Tim and I feel certain that your relationship with your mother can only be enhanced if you introduce her to us via this podcast. Then your mothers, much like ours, will know for certain that things are definitely not okay.
Sinister Minutes features tales that include disturbing content. That's intentional, because like the podcast itself, the creators here at Sinister Minutes are really not okay. Content featured on this podcast may include descriptions of abuse, addiction, alcohol, blood, bodily fluids, bondage, bones, bullying, burning, cancer, cannibalism, cheating, clowns, trauma, confinement, control, cults, death, decapitation, depression, diets, divorce, domestic abuse, drowning, drugs, dying, eating disorders, epidemics, experimentation, family conflict, fear, fighting, fire, gaslighting, ghosts, gore, guns, harassment, hate crime, hazing, homelessness, homicide, hospitalization, hostage situations, hostile work environments, illness, incarceration, infidelity, injury, institutionalization, kidnapping, manipulation, medical procedures, memory problems, mental health issues, military service, misogyny, murder, mutilation, needles, nightmares, nudity, pain, panic attacks, paralysis, ecclesiastical abuse, pornography, physical assault, police brutality, poverty, profanity, religion, robbery, scars, screaming, self-harm, smoking, hate, spider, stabbing, stalking, starvation, substance abuse, suicide, terrorism, threats, torture, victim blaming, violence, war, weapons, weather, and maybe, just maybe, witches. Mother's Day. Ma, thanks for coming. Means a lot to me, you going to all this bother. Sorry that chair is not more comfy, what with your arthritis and all. And it's nailed down tight, like everything else here. You hear me okay through this mesh? Good. Kinda weird thinking I gotta catch you up. I mean, when I was little, you always knew everything I was doing. Must have been rough putting me on the school bus, the way you hated me ever being out of your sight. You were so sure I was going to be a wild child, drinking, smoking, running with the boys. I remember 7th grade, that time you broke your favorite wooden spoon on me. Something you read in my diary, you said. You never did tell me what, but it taught me to hold my secrets close. You taught me so much. I know you were just looking out for me, 'cause you cared more than anybody else ever did. The guys here, I'm sure you talked to a few of them when they let you in. They don't care. To them, I'm just another job. Like my new do? Ha! The way you keep staring at me, I know what you're thinking. All those nights you spent yanking the tangles out when I was a kid, and here I just go chopping it all off. You know what though? New hair, new outfit, new outlook. Never known you to be so awful quiet. Not saying you talk too much, nothing like that. It's just, well, growing up, the sound of your voice, it always meant home. Whether you were yelling at me, or Daddy, or whoever. But hey, if you're feeling quiet today, that's okay. Reckon I got enough to say for both of us. Had another visitor a few weeks back. Remember Lynn Hager? We were pretty tight, right up into high school. She looks good. Married, couple kids, decent job. I can't hardly remember the last time we got together. She must have been, 18? When you told her she was too old to be coming around anymore? Of course you were right. I was only 16. She didn't need to be hanging out with a kid my age. Surprised the hell out of me. Her starting that fundraiser. Even more surprising to see how many folks pitched in. Well, ain't this just a trip down memory lane? You know what? I really want to thank you for always kicking my ass back to the right path. Took years before I figured out what you meant when you said, "This hurts me more than it hurts you." Back then, I only knew how much I was hurting. But I reckon it made an impression. Sometimes a beating's the best way to get through. Other times, even that's not enough. You never took no shit from me, pardon my French, and so I learned never to take it from nobody else. Just how life works. Some people say it's my attitude's got me where I am today. If that's true, then you should maybe stand up and take a bow. You feeling okay? You look a little pale. You were always big on the whole tough love thing. I knew you were gonna flip that day I came home and told you I got myself knocked up. I cursed you up and down after you threw me out. But you taught me to live with my choices, make my own way in the world. Well, that time was rough. No way I was gonna raise a kid all on my own. And that boy that got me that way, he wanted nothing to do with it. Or me. So yeah, I got rid of it. Wasn't long after, I got rid of him too. Guess he was the first. When was the last time I saw you? Oh, that's right. Daddy's funeral. Sorry to bring that up, but you know what? All that stuff you said that day, I thought about that a lot. And like always, you were right. Probably I did put him in his grave. Had to be hard on him. I mean, he could look real mean when you were around. But you want to know a secret? Lots of times, as soon as you left the room, he'd whisper in my ear one of his dumb jokes, and we'd both do our damnedest not to laugh out loud. All that flipping back and forth, mean and nice, took a toll on him. I miss him a lot. You must be missing him too. Now, some parents, they praise their kids for every stupid little thing they do. Just makes them think the world owes them something, don't it? Not you. You always told me I'd never amount to anything. And you know what? Made my life a lot easier. Every time some guy took me out, started talking me up, I knew he was blowing smoke up my... well, you know. There was a time I'd do anything I thought might tick you off. I'd pick up guys just 'cause I knew you wouldn't like them. Funny. Turns out those were the same kind of guys I later, well, you know. Like I said, even a beating ain't enough for some. You really did deserve better. You used to tell me that every day. That and how you never wanted me in the first place. Hey, time's running short, and I've been chewing your ear off. Next time, maybe you'll feel more like talking. What's the matter? Oh my, you didn't hear, did you? I can see it on your face. My date with the needle's been put off. The new lawyer? The one I got through the fundraiser? I guess she got somebody to listen to her. So no worries, there'll be a next time. And hey, it ain't so bad in here. 3 squares a day, and the food's nowhere near as bad as you think. Got a room to myself, and nobody messes with me. Death row sounds so ominous, don't it? But shoot, could be months, even years before my number comes up again, if it ever does. I don't see why it's such a big deal. Seems to me I was doing a public service. They didn't even find but a couple of them. I guess 'cause nobody even cared enough to report the rest missing. Says a lot, don't it? Now my lawyer says there's holes in the state's case she could drive a truck through. She's positive she can get my sentence reversed. And you want to know what else? I might even get out. If I do, get out, I mean. You know what I'm going to do first? Come visit my ma. Catch up on old times. No guards, no shackles, nothing to come between us. Makes me smile every time I think about that.
Mama's Boy by Kurt Homan. Bruce mounted the stairs to the gallows. Each torturous step brought him closer to the hangman, who scowled down from the platform. "Come on, Fagin, we ain't got all day." He finished his climb into the dirty yellow school bus. He ignored the glare of the driver, Mr. Hook, who snapped the lever to close the bus door. Bruce trudged down the aisle. Before he'd even cleared the second row, the bus lurched forward. He stumbled and grabbed a seat back with one hand while maintaining his grip on the paper lunch bag he held with the other. "Get your hand off my seat." Jimmy Harris knocked Bruce's arm away, his tiny piggish eyes squinting from the center of his immense round face. "I was just," stammered Bruce. "Wah, wah, wah," Jimmy said. "Spit it out, you little freak." Ignoring Jimmy, Bruce plodded on. His mom's words filled his head. "Don't you listen? You're better than any of them. I know it's hard, but someday you'll go far, farther than any of them will ever even dream of." It was a safe bet that nobody else would want to share their seat with him, so he took the only vacant bench, the one he always took, the one with the hump in the floor. Slipping off his backpack, he tossed it on the seat and plopped down himself, knees at an awkward angle, brown bag in his lap. The ride was long, an hour each way. The bus repeatedly stopped, then jerked forward, the seats filling, the noise level increasing. Bruce stared at the seat back ahead of him. The green vinyl had long since faded, the result of repeated attempts to remove crude drawings and words scrawled there. A section of deep brown tape provided stark contrast, covering the slice where somebody had once tested the sharpness of a penknife. "Bruce!" Bruce stared straight ahead, determined to ignore the voice. His heart pounded, threatening to burst from his chest. The sour breath of the executioner filled his nostrils, and he didn't need to look over to see the crooked yellow smile beneath the mask, the open mouth salivating with anticipation. "What, ya deaf? I'm talking to ya." Bruce slowly turned to look. Jack Trop was in the aisle, smirking like a cat who's just cornered a mouse. A cat whose only motion was batting its strands of oily blonde hair falling into his eyes. "What you bring for lunch?" Nothing, muttered Bruce at last, turning to stare at the seat back again as he gripped the bag tighter and shifted it toward the window, further away from Jack. "Looks like something to me. Give it over." "Baby, some people like nothing better than to push you around. Gotta stand up to 'em, even when they're bigger than you. You give in, they just come back for more." Please, leave me alone." "Give it over." Jack's voice dropped an octave. He grabbed Bruce's collar with one hand, driving his knuckles into Bruce's throat. "If you want to live to see tomorrow." "Hey!" shouted Mr. Hoke from the front of the bus. "Get back in your seat, Trop, now!" Jack threw a short, quick jab at Bruce's shoulder. "You get off easy this time. I'll see you later." Bruce rubbed his arm. It hadn't been much of a punch, but it still hurt. He shifted the lunch bag back onto his lap as he tried to catch his breath. Bruce had only attended middle school in Witter's Corners for a few weeks, but Jack had been there right from the start to welcome him. While failing most of his classes, Jack nonetheless showed true ingenuity in the subject of creative torment. Stolen lunch money, ripped up homework, muddy footprints in textbooks were among the more pleasant possibilities. Others involved physical pain and lingering bruises. Sometimes it happened in the school cafeteria or playground, but the bus was by far Jack's favorite arena. Bruce sat perfectly still on the sticky vinyl bench, sounds of laughter and conversation all around. Only a few kids ever talked to him at all, and most, like Jack, only did so to be cruel. "You never get everybody to like you. You just be you, and don't you worry what people think." Bruce sighed, his mother's face beaming at him from behind his closed eyes. When he opened them, he was looking straight ahead at the peeling edges of the duct tape on the seat back ahead of him. He watched, fascinated, as a bubble rose in the center of the brown strip. Another bubbled up next to the first, and the tape distorted into a thick brown stew about to boil over. Something erupted from the oozing brown mass in front of him. Bruce froze as a long, sharp blade, blackened in the fires of hell, speared out straight toward his fast-pounding heart. It touched his breastbone, and the scream escaped his lips even as he knocked the thing away. "What the hell is going on back there?" yelled Mr. Hoke from the driver's seat. "If I have to stop this bus—" The scream died in Bruce's throat. The blade was gone. Only the ugly gash in the center of the duct tape gave an indication that anything had happened. For a long minute, no one on the bus said a word. Only the sounds of the engine carried through the interior. At the next regular stop, Mr. Hoke got out of his seat and walked toward the back, glaring down at each seat. He stopped at Bruce's. "Fagin," he pointed at the tear in the tape. "Did you do that?" No. Well, then who did? It didn't look like that this morning. I don't know. Mr. Hoke turned around to walk back to the driver's seat. Maybe you'll know more when we get to school. You can tell the principal all about it. Bruce squeezed his eyes shut, willing himself not to cry. Hey, Fagin. Bruce opened his eyes. Mr. Hoke had returned to the front of the bus, glaring back at him through the oversized mirror above his head. No more squealing, okay? The snickering started an instant later. As the bus jerked forward, it amplified to outright laughter. Squeal, Brucey, squeal! He heard his name over and over, pounding in his ears. People laugh when they're scared. Think they can laugh the devil away. Stuff they carry inside, that's what they laugh at the hardest. 'Cause they don't want anybody thinking about what they've got inside. What they are. Mama, Bruce said in a tiny voice, shaking his head. His eyes grew moist, tears threatening to spill forth as the noise on the bus returned to normal. Cry, little baby. Jack's head appeared over the seat in front of Bruce. Cry for your mommy, but don't squeal. Laughter erupted again. His gaze still focused on the gash in the seat back, Bruce didn't notice the arm that reached over the top until it had grabbed the lunch bag on his lap. No, he screamed, grabbing the bag. Let go! Fagin, yelled Mr. Hoke. I told you to be quiet. Bruce didn't care if he got in trouble. He could get sent to the principal's office every day for the rest of his life. All that mattered was holding on to that bag. Come on, you little puke! Jack's face leered above the seat back that separated them. Let go! Bruce rose to his feet. He clutched at the bottom of the bag with one hand. All his remaining strength formed a fist that slammed into Jack's face. The thin paper bag gave way. Time slowed. Jack crumpled, his face a mask of shock. The contents of the torn bag exploded straight into the air. The inside of the bus was pelted with a dark cloud of gravel and dust. Mama, whispered Bruce, watching the gradual descent of paper-thin flakes as more hung in the air like flecks of dust. We all gotta go someday, baby. Didn't think it'd be so soon, but nobody gets much say in that. Don't you worry none. I'll always be close by. The bus was nearly silent for the rest of the trip. Jack did not reappear, and Mr. Hoke's gaze remained solidly focused on the road. Bruce stared straight ahead without saying a word. He wouldn't tell them all what they were wearing in their hair all over their clothes and books. They seemed to know, to understand. The fine coating of ash that covered every surface on the bus brought with it the comfort of a mother's touch.
The visit. We were just here, said Ned. Why do we have to visit so often? It's been a whole year. Emma took his arm. Some folks do this a lot more often than that. The two of them shuffled slowly into the cemetery. Heavy iron gates flanked the entrance, rusts deep in the joints thwarting the original purpose of keeping the residents on their respective sides of the wall. Just inside the entrance, the first mausoleum rose from amongst the swirling dried leaves, a Gothic castle in miniature. Why do you suppose they like it here? He asked. She turned and smiled at him, but her eyes reflected only sadness. This is where we always see them. I'd think they'd want to meet at the old homestead. Holiday decorations, a table full of food, and a hubbub of laughter and conversations rushed in to fill his memories. We should take a trip there ourselves. But, sure, Emma looked down, studying the path just ahead of them. Let's talk about that later. They continued past a row of larger gravestones, some of them majestic monuments to forever commemorate entire families. Others toppled and broken, forgotten names now pressed face down in the dirt. Farther back, the stones grew smaller, less ostentatious. They stopped in front of two markers mounted flush with the ground, indistinguishable from the rest. Ned shook his head. I don't think this is the right spot. Isn't it a few more rows over? She knelt down, fingertips brushing away the debris that covered the slabs. This is the place. Still not convinced, he tried to read the carved names, but couldn't quite focus on the letters. She turned to her left. They're coming. He looked in the direction that held Emma's gaze, seeing nothing but gray skies forming a background to the neat rows of distant memorials. When he turned back to Emma, she was smiling. Are they here? He asked. She nodded her assent, her face aglow. I wish they'd speak up. He turned to face the same direction as her, wishing he could capture some of the same reverence she displayed. Even if I can't see them, once or twice, I think I've heard them. Shh, she said. Maybe you'll hear better if you just hush for a minute. Ned strained to listen. He recalled other times when he and Emma had visited cemeteries, and the sound had been constant. Cars crunching gravel as they crept past, teenagers giggling as they partied behind the crypts, birds and squirrels chattering amongst the trees. Now none of those disturbed the near-perfect stillness. Anything? He asked with a shrug. He could see Emma's lips moving, but she made no sound to disturb the silence. She turned to him, eyes sparkling. They say they're sorry. Sorry? Sorry for what? For being so busy, for not getting here more often. He laughed. What have they got to do all day to keep them so busy? Compared to you and me, she laid a finger across his lips. And just for a moment, he saw something. A shimmer of color in an otherwise monochrome day, a ripple of movement against a stationary backdrop. It was gone a moment later. How long have they been gone now? His voice was barely above a whisper. Emma's shoulders slumped, and she stared sadly at him. I should remember, he thought, and at the very least, I shouldn't admit that I don't remember, not to her. He shook his head, trying to clear the cobwebs that seemed to have taken up permanent residence. She took his hand and squeezed it. Without a word, the two of them turned back toward the entrance. It's not them, she replied as they walked, who are gone. Sinister Minutes is presented by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. The musical score was composed and performed by Tim Parker. Our production team consists of Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. On behalf of everyone here at the Sinister Minutes podcast, namely Kurt Homan and Tim Parker, we thank you for listening, for joining us as we explore all the ways in which we are not okay. This audio program is copyright 2024 by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.